All right, so in this video, I'm going to try and explain modes to you and how we use modes. So the way I like to think about modes is that they're basically just variations of our major and our minor scale. So the first mode, as we call it, is the Ionian mode, Ionian, and that is actually just our regular major scale. So if you know your C major scale, right, just uses all naturals, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and those numbers are really important to learn. So in a C major scale, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, and B is 7, and then C is 8, technically the first though. So out of those 7 different tones, right, the Ionian mode is just that major scale right there. Now, there's a mode called the Lydian mode. Even though that's technically known as the 4th mode, I like to teach this one next because it's your same major scale with just one adjustment, just your 4th note of the scale moved up half of a step. So whatever scale you're in, if you're in A major, B major, it doesn't matter. Well, we're using C major here. All you do is you take the 4th note of the scale and move it up a half step. So in this case, F becomes F sharp. And it creates that sound. So modes are just variations of our scale. And I'll do some overhand stuff as well, where I kind of show you some different examples of playing in these modes. So that's your Lydian mode, right? So Lydian mode takes the 4th note of your scale and moves it up a half step. Then we have another major variation mode called the Mixolydian mode. The Mixolydian mode basically just takes the 7th note of your scale and moves it down a half step. So instead of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, like our major scale, the Ionian, we just make that B a B flat. And it gives us that variation of the major scale. So like I said, it doesn't matter which scale you're doing, D major, E major, A major, any of them, you just take the 7th note of the scale and you drop it down a half step to turn it into the Mixolydian mode. Now we have minor modes. So those are our 3 major modes. Ionian, which is just your regular major, Lydian, which is your major with a raised 4th, and then your Mixolydian, which is your major with a flat 7th. Then for our minor modes, we have what's called the Aeolian mode, which is just your natural minor scale. So starting on A, if you know your A minor scale, it's just like C major, it uses all naturals. So that's your A minor scale. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, G is 7, and A is 8/1, right? So our 7 tones, now that's the Aeolian, just our natural minor. Then we have one called the Dorian. The Dorian takes the 6th note of your natural minor, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it raises it a half step, so that F becomes an F sharp. So our A Dorian, we raise that F to an F sharp, and we get that variation. Right, so it gives a whole different mood, and that's the whole thing with modes, and what you're basically trying to do is just little variations of your scale that can add just a different style or different mood and feeling to it. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with modes, is you learn to, make up songs or improvise in these modes, and it just adds a little something extra that makes it sound a little different, adds a different tension and all these different things. So now we got to learn the other 2 minor modes. So we just did A, right, A Dorian, and then we have A Phrygian. So Phrygian mode is where you take the 2nd note of the scale and you drop it down a half step. So our regular Aeolian scale, right, the minor scale uses A, B, C. So B is number 2, we want to drop that to B flat. Right, and you can hear the sound that creates. Right, so another little different mode we can get there. And then finally, if we have what's called the Locrian scale. Now the Locrian is not used very often, the Locrian mode. It's not used very often. It actually is the only one that flattens 2 of the notes. It flattens the 2nd note of your scale and the 5th note of your scale. So if we did like an A Locrian scale, it would be A, B flat, because we've lowered the 2nd, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. And it's got an interesting sound to it. It's not used very frequently at all. But anyways, those are your modes. And, like I said, the idea with modes is they're just different variations, way to kind of use some other notes outside of your scale. You may have noticed like C Lydian, for example, right? Just uses 1 sharp. And you're like, well, isn't the key of G major the one that just uses 1 sharp? Wouldn't this just be in the key of G? And that's the thing. A mode is not a key of a song, right? A mode is just a scale that gives a different sound. So playing an F sharp as you play a C chord, right? So, right? I mean, that's The Simpsons right there, right? And then Anyways, right? So the modes are just different ways to play these scales that create cool sounds, fun sounds. You just got to learn the sound of the different modes, mess around with them, and then learn them in every key. Like I said, some people explain it like C Ionian, D Dorian, E Phrygian. When I learned it that way, it didn't help me until I really thought about just what is the change I'm making in the scale. Ionian is major, Lydian is major with a sharp 4, Mixolydian is major with a flat 7, then you have your Aeolian, which is just your minor scale, then you have your Dorian, which is just a minor scale with a with a sharp 6, then you have your Phrygian, which is just a minor scale with a flat 2, and then your Locrian, which is a minor scale with a flat 2 and a flat 5. So that is all the modes. Hope you found this helpful. Mess around with them. That's the only way to kind of get used to their sounds and have fun playing them. If you have any other questions or any other tutorial requests, drop a comment below and I'll get to it as soon as I can.